Lumbuye, and I'll call me Lumbuye now, please. So I decided to shorten my name, George W Kasozi, and people call me George. Those who feel like we are friends, they call me George. I was edified a lot by presentations by previous speakers. Brother Moses Chibirango, his frank testimony was very moving. The Lord has lifted him up despite the fact that he had basic education. Pastor Njanabo Muzukulu wa Mugema, he shared with us how God has been dealing with him over the years and how at one time he had to change residence. Of course, he had to use a bicycle because he had very few belongings, but today he says if he were to move, he may have to summon Magulu Kumis and many of them. That is a blessing from God. My brother Muko, David Chigozi, he showed us how God has blessed him over the years. By the way, Chigozi is one of these people I have also known for years. I'll tell you more about others, but I've known Chigozi since 1975. We did teach together at one time. He was teaching at Aga Khan and also teaching at Nakasero Secondary School, where I also happened to teach. That is around 1970, 76, 77. And this gentleman, by the way, let me thank him publicly for the assistance he extended to me while we were in Nairobi in 1983. I had gone to bid him farewell because I was going to Southern Africa. I was privileged even to attend his wedding. I remember my brother, he gave me some money. Now, this is 1983. He gave me 5 Kenyan shillings. Now, 1983, 5 Kenyan shillings was a lot of money. Even today, it's something. So he gave me some money. I have never forgotten. Maybe he has forgotten, but I have not. Brother Charles Muhindo was interesting to listen to. God has showed us that we do not have to rely on our earthly riches because they perish. Their taxi did perish. His grasshopper experience is a good lesson to us, not to eat too much of anything which the Lord blesses us with. My Muko, another Muko, maybe Muko Musanji, Mr. Malwade. Incidentally, I have got a photographic memory. When I see things, I don't forget them. I don't, and I thank God for that. And when I was remembering how our brother Malwade was speaking to us, his wonderful experience, then I went back in time in 1981 in Nairobi. And I remember seeing this gentleman. He was, of course, a little younger than he is. Of course, he was younger, and he was more, you are still handsome, but he was even more handsome. Yes, and I want to believe that ladies were falling for him. Of course, there are no ladies here, don't mind. Ladies were falling for him. Mr. Malwade has told us about his desire to join King's College Budo in his student days. Of course, this did not materialize. He did not go to Budo. However, his contacts eventually led him to St. Henry's College, Chitovu, and God used those very contacts to open a way for him to go on an exchange program in the USA. I admired this because he attended a prestigious school. By the way, my home is in Entebbe. So when he was talking, I went down memory lane and went back to my home. He mentioned a school which was the envy of most of us. He went to Lake Victoria Primary School, prestigious school. This was not an ordinary school. It was a school which was intended to cater for a particular elite group in society. Not everybody would have their sons, their daughters go to primary school, Lake Victoria Primary School. I, for one, admired it. But of course, my dad wouldn't take me there. Even if he had the money, I don't think he had the will to take me there. Instead, I went to another school, the oldest school, I think older than Lake Victoria School, which is Chadik Memorial Primary School, Namate Church of Uganda. That old school, by the way, it is even collapsing now. And this is a school where I hear Madam Rebecca Kadaga also went to school. So it's a good school. It has taught many of us. But Brother Marwade, I enjoyed your presentation. I liked your admonition to us, where you were encouraging us to leave a mark wherever we work as Christians. This commitment of yours to work has paid dividends, even as attested to by William Pike. Finally, my elder brother in the Lord, Mr. Eridadi Mbabazi, revealed to us his business acumen and how it has been useful to him. It is little wonder, therefore, that he is an accomplished chartered accountant. Yes, from what he was telling us, building this house, moving on to another one, and buying the other plot, I think is something that we need to commend him for. Now, the specific introduction, I'll try to share my journey by making reference to my curriculum vitae as the source document. I hope this will not offend anyone, as it may seem to concentrate on what I have achieved in life so far. My consolation, though, is from the scriptures that whatever you do in word or deed, do in the name of the Lord. My sharing is intended to glorify God, so that when a brother hears what God has done for me, he may get encouraged to believe God for even a greater miracle. That is why we are here as men. My presentation will offer on a general introduction, the specific introduction, highlight my parents and when I was born, my childhood, my upbringing, early education, secondary education, and fill the gap employment, how I got born again, Jesus finds me. The horror of Idi Amin's security operatives when they attacked this church here, when they did their mischief here. I will also talk about that. Marriage and raising children in a Christian way, higher education, tertiary and university education, the specialized training I have attended together with the short courses, my current and former employments, and other academic engagements, the publications I have undertaken over the last 33 years of my academic life. I will mention some of the postgraduate supervision that I have also undertaken. And finally, I'll attempt to share the lessons I have learned over these 47 years I have been born again. Mr. Timekeeper, may I request then that when it's about 15 minutes to the end, please signal me. Just raise your hand, I will know that, yes, I still have 15 more minutes. Please don't forget that. If you do, well, I'll never forgive you. My full name is George William Kasozi Chikonyogo Lubuye, styled as George W Kasozi. I was born in Entebbe Grade B Hospital on the 10th of October, 1954. There is only, I think, one man here who rivals me. This young man here. This young man rivals me by a few years. But otherwise, Ndikazei. Some of you are telling me to go to Rwachitura, ngende wakaze kanange, but I think I'm still around. Okay. This was during the colonial days. As you all know, I belong to the Mamba clan. For those who want to know, ndi muzukulu wa Gabunga, sigenda kulanya, temuti asija kulanya. Now, I may also add that since I am now in God's kingdom, I have a right to claim ancestry from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. My father was Richard Washington Kabanja Sechitunku. Actually, he was the head of our line, the lineage of our family tree. He was the head. And for those of you who hail from Buganda, you know what it means. Being a head of a lineage, of course, carries with it some spiritual connotations. Spiritual and very serious spiritual connotations. His ancestral home is Bubeke Sese Island, now in the district of Kalangala. For those of you who have read Mr. Museveni's book, Sowing the Mustard Seed, somewhere he writes about Sese Island, and incidentally, one of the men who used to ferry him across is a distant relative of mine, Yovani, but I think he has passed on. And Yovani is actually on our village, Bubeke village. And Mr. Museveni used to go and hide with Mr. Yovani, and then Yovani would convey him across the lake. So this is the island where Mr. Museveni used to spring off and go to Kenya and also come back. My late father told me that his original home was on another island known as Mazinga Island. This Mazinga Island is in Lake Victoria. This is the last Ugandan island before you cross over to the Tanzanian border. My father told me that his great ancestors, Semafumu and Sekundi, who were brothers, had emigrated from Mazinga Island to Wekesese, where they established their lineage and their family tree. And it includes many of these: Sembalabucha, Chikonyogo Lubuye, Abenenego Zamala, Alexander Chekaka, Katwalo, amongst others. Of course, as a Christian, you know your identity, but of course you don't go beyond knowing them. We do not subscribe to ancestral worship. My father came to mainland in 1940s, and he proceeded to Kako Junior School, Masaka in Wuddu. In those days, Sese Islands were administered through Masaka. In fact, they used to be part of Masaka district, but later they were now put in their own district, which is Kalangala. My dad encountered financial challenges, and he did not continue with education. He completed Junior 2. Yes, my elder brother and babas, you know, when we talk about Junior 2, you know what Junior 2 is. Junior 2 was a very, very solid qualification. Mr. Malwade, you know Junior 2? Junior 2, you didn't know about Junior 2? Brother Musoka, you know Junior 2? Yes, you know Junior 2. Brother Eric, no, you don't know Junior 2. No. You were born yesterday. But Junior 2 was a very, very strong qualification, because from Junior 2 then you went to Junior 3. But eventually they had to abolish Junior 3 and then they started Junior 1. So when he completed Junior 2, he went and lived with a close relative in Lumuli village near Chitende, behind Kajansi Township, along Entebbe Road. He then joined the hospital and rose through the medical ranks of a dresser to the senior theater attendant. Now, these were men who learned the skill on the job. If you heard what my brother was saying, his father was a paramedic, a medical assistant. Actually, those paramedics, the medical assistants of the 50s, the 60s, and early 70s were really, really well grounded. In fact, they even knew more than even some of the doctors today. my brother doctor, don't think I'm embarrassing you. No. Yes, I respect your qualifications, but those old men, the medical assistant, they were really very groomed in their job. So he rose through those ranks and he became a theater attendant, and there came a time when they could never undertake on any operation without my father being there, because he was guiding them on the procedures, on the instruments, and so on and so forth. So in the colonial days, Africans who had potential were trained on the job and absorbed into Her Majesty's service. Her, a little more, we did not know, but we got to know that her dad emigrated from somewhere, and he had lots and lots of cattle. He was a very rich man, and even bought big lands in Busoga, and even became a chief. He became omwami omutaka ow'ekisoko omwidhi ow'ekisoko. He became a mutaka ow'ekisoko. Now, however, my grandfather had made a blood covenant, yato mukago, with the Magoba family. Unfortunately, upon his death, the trustees breached the trust, and they did not pass the cows on to their children, including my mother. By the way, one of the laws I teach at university is a law called equity and trusts. Very, very interesting law, very interesting piece of law. But now, these people, they are lucky, because now that I have acquired these skills, if they were around, I would have gone after them. I would have pursued my grandfather's cows. They should have returned them, yes. But anyway, that's it for now. As I mentioned earlier on, I was born and grew up in Entebbe, the capital of Uganda. For those of you who don't know, Entebbe was the capital of Uganda in the colonial times. I grew up with children of paramedics. There were many also group employees in the hospital, including people from Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, and Sudan. I was very much a darling of the workers from Rwanda who spoke Kinyarwanda, which I learned as a child. This was in addition to my native Luganda. I grew up, as I grew up, I forgot much of the language because I did not speak it regularly. I do speak Swahili, I do speak Sisutu, of course, in addition to English. I speak Sisutu on account of my sojourn in the country for close to 20 years. Growing up in the hospital setting where I had Indian and Goan doctors and paramedics, I picked bits of English words. So from a very early age, I was able to speak English. What I have also to mention is that my father, having worked with Bazungu doctors, my father became a Muzungu in the head. He loved everything English, he loved everything England, and he wanted all his children to go to England. But guess what? As God has it, none of his children ever went to England. The first one from King's College, Budo, he's now Professor Mif Boses Musoke. When he left King's College, Budo, he went to Moscow State University. Of course, eventually he went to Australia. He came back. He did not go to England. Now, the first one, Ruth Namiro Kabanja Mugerwa, she finished Gayaza, then she went to the US. A third one, when he finished Makerere, he went to Norway. So none of his children ever went to England, yet my dad was very, very much English. You know these old men. You know those old men who worshipped the queen. You know, the queen was everything. Queen Ayogede, Queenie, Nabanga Queenie. England, you know. But luckily, I, George William G W Kasozi, who was not my favorite son, who was not a favorite son of my father, I'm the only one who went to England and studied in England. I'll talk about that later. Now, Entebbe being the colonial seat of government, it had many unique buildings. I remember seeing such a building in or about 1959. I remember it was about 1950, not about, it was 1959. I was about 5 years old. I remember things which were happening when I was 5 years old. I was walking with my mother, and then we came to this very well-groomed compound with an impressive colonial building. As a child, I was impressed with the compound and the building. I asked my mom what that building was, and she told me that it was a courthouse. I asked her what happens in a courthouse. And she told me that this is where a judge or mulamuzi sits and administers justice. That people who have committed crimes are tried and sentenced in that house. She also said that people with disputes over land or other property are assisted to get justice in that place. I told my mom, Mama, that when I grow up, I would like to sit in that house and dispense justice to humanity. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? I'll let you know. Okay. Now, about 3 years ago, I reminded my mom, before she passed on, about that incident, and she remembered it well. And my mom was happy that at last my dream had been realized. I'll talk about that later. The reason for my interest was that as a child, I had witnessed injustice done to some children of a worker hailing from eastern Uganda. This was at the hands of a foreman. I even still remember his name, Nampala, erinnya lye nga Kisawo. Kisawo, omusajja Kisawo yatubonyaabonya. He was a very cruel man who resented the said lady and blamed her for all the dirt and all the rubbish in the hospital compound. Even when other children littered the compound as they harvested mangoes, Kisawo blamed it on the children of the said woman. I felt there was injustice and felt strongly about that injustice. I felt that when I grow up, I should ensure that justice is administered to all people in society, irrespective of their origin, social status, or professional standing. The children of the nurses and paramedics were always absolved of wrongdoing, and those of the poor group employee were always the usual suspects. I'll come back to this later. The following year, I was told by my mom that Dad had decided to send me to grow up with one of his my last grandfathers, Alexander Takache Kakalule. I learned that my grandfather wanted an heir, which later became the Wildlife Center. So now Kasozi lives, he goes to Sese Island. Now in those days, there were very few nursery schools, but they were mainly in the elite communities. Sese Island was not that affluent. I therefore started primary education in Primary 1 in 1960 at Bubeke Sese Church of Uganda Primary School. My grandfather had donated about 5 acres of our family land to the Church of Uganda, where the school was built. A church was also erected on the land. This was the only school on the island. It served the entire population. My cousin brother, he's actually in Muganda wange, but in Ruzungu they say cousin brother, but he's a brother. My cousin brother, Erusania Kamara Musoke, was the headmaster. He had trained at Namutamba Teacher Training College. Yes, I think you mentioned Namutamba Teacher Training College, my brother Mbabazi, as a vernacular teacher. He also served as a catechist for the Church of Uganda. I learned many passages in the Bible through Sunday school. Today, I may boldly say that I am informed by some of the stories I learned at Sunday school in the 1960s. The Word of God will never come back void. It will accomplish what God intends. Now, in primary 1 and primary 2, we used white chalk to write on slates. Brother Mbabazi used to write on the ground. Oh, sorry for you, my brother. But with us, at least we had slates. We had slates on which we wrote. These were well-processed plywoods painted black. We only used colored chalk in art. We would wipe the slates clean after class work for a particular subject. Colored chalk was only used for art, although as children we loved the colored chalk. When we got to primary 3 and 4, we were allowed to write using nibs. Yes, you had fountain pens. Now you had an age of us because we never had access to pens. We had access to nibs. A nib is, it's like a fountain pen, but it doesn't have a tank. It doesn't have an ink tank. You have to keep dipping it in the ink pot. You have to. So we used nibs in primary 3 and 4. Unlike our brothers in Kanungu, we had ample supply of ink. Our headmaster would stock the school with all the books, the chalk, the ink, and other materials we needed. Once or twice before the school term would begin, he would go to Kampala to get fresh supplies. I remember he used to go to Uganda Bookshop, that building which was next to Central Police Station. But it was demolished. They constructed a mall. Some mall of some sort. Now the Uganda Bookshop is close to the Christ the King Church. Now, since my cousin brother was also a member of the Luchiko representing Sese Islands, he would go for Luchiko meetings at Bulange, Mengo, and also attend matters pertaining to the school. Later, my cousin brother humbly stood down for Dr. Eri Mukasamuwazi as a Sese representative in the Luchiko. The engagement with Ruchiko, of course, gave my brother some exposure so that he would be able to teach. In 1962, I was in primary 2. I vividly remember independence celebrations. My other cousin brother, Hudson Chiza Chekaka, was active in independence politics, and eventually he became a chief. Since he was in charge of independence celebrations, he gave me a big chunk of meat. I ate so much meat.